Hi guys, very good morning to you. Hope you all doing great and welcome to the another tutorial. This is the video number 202 and in this video we're going to talk about the Dlookup function. I'm going to talk about actually also going to answer this question which I received I think yesterday, and my subscriber Mr. Ahmed, he says that hi Ajay, I'm preparing a user form in Access and I want to clear a login form. I want to create, actually it's just I think typo mistake. I want to create a login form. User should enter his username and password and only then allowed to go into the form. Okay, so what actually he wants is that suppose you have a login form there, and if you enter your username and the password and you click on the submit button, if your username and the password is not authenticated, then you would see the error. So you are not actually going to be on the next page. You can't use the next form. Okay, you can't use anything, in fact, right? A clear-cut message would come out that your authentication is failed, your credentials are failed, so you cannot log in. Okay, so this is what actually we are going to do today, and so let's go ahead and I'm also going to teach you today how actually you can make this kind of a form, the login form. So we will also be going to learn the Dlookup function in the MS Access. Now this is the Access 2013 I'm actually using. I just recently got installed. I was working on the Access 2010, and if you know me through my channel, then you know that our 200 previous videos are actually on the Access 2010, but it is not going to make any difference eventually. That is I think the important thing. So let's just go ahead and let us first of all create the table. Now my subscriber didn't actually share the table, I mean what fields he has, but I'm sure if you want to create a login form, this kind of the form, then you need to have two identities, and they are the, let's say, username. So let's just create the username here, and then the next thing, we can create the password for everyone, right? And another details if you want, I mean you can also create the another details, but we just keep it short. Okay, so let me just save this table, and login details, I can write it, login details. This is my table name. Let's just save it. Do you want to create the primary key? Well, you can create it because username should not be repeated, that's fine, but I just keep it no, that's fine, because I just need to explain you guys that how the things are working, so it hardly matters. But you can create the password, you can create the the primary key, so that anytime if a username is already entered, that cannot be entered again, right? Whosoever is going to enter that detail, he should get the prompt. So I'm writing here some usernames. Let's say this is the password I'm going to create for every username. So I have Ajay, I have let's say Alan, and the the password is let's say it's 454, and then let's say a couple of more, let's say we have some more names here. So I'm going to create the password for everybody, and there we go. And one more name we can add. This is the one, and okay, so we have the usernames, we have the passwords. This is the table you need to, guys, you need to maintain it. So let's just close this, and let's go to the create, and now I'm going to create the form. So go to the form and click on the form design, because from the form he's going to enter all the details. Now we need the basically two text boxes where he can write the username and the password, and one command button where he can click it, right? So just go here and find out where is the text box. This is my text box, so I'm going to just drag it here. There we go, you have the text box, and just copy it, copy and paste again. Just 1 second, copy and paste. Okay, so we have here two text boxes, and I want to actually give them the good name. We'll do that in a while, and then go ahead and create the button also. Just click on this button, and here we are going to create the button. Okay, so just cancel it, we don't need anything. Now if you look at the view, if you click on the view, this is how you would see this. So this text should be the username, this text should be the password. So let's click on the design view to give the good label name, proper label name. So just let me just drag it a little here. Yeah, there we go. And in the text now I can click here, or maybe you can click on this you know, the label one. This is where the caption, that's all up to you. You can write here, for example, let me just write it, that enter username. Okay, so the moment you click outside, you see that this is the name which is now showing as enter username. Just increase the width of it. There we go. And the another way is without going to this caption, you can also click on this and you can, you know, edit it. So it's one and the same thing. So just enter your password. That's it. Let's say now, and in the command box, as I said again, when you click on the command box, this property sheet gets highlighted. If it is not coming, then don't worry, don't panic. Just simply select this control, the command, and click on this property sheet. Okay, so this is the name of this button which we are going to use in the VBA, and this is the caption name. Caption name means that this is what exactly user would see in the front end, right? So we can rename it. So let me just click back here and let's click on the all, and let's change it to summit. Okay, that's what we need. All right, and I'm also going to name this as CMD summit. I'll tell you, you would see in the VBA when we are going to program it, you would see this button. Okay, and now let's just click here and let's just name this as not text but txt and username. I'll tell you the benefit of it, because this now the control would appear as txt username in the background when we are going to write the VBA code, and that is going to help us a lot actually. And then this txt is going to be txt password, let's say. Okay, because if I have a name like text1, text2, text3, you know, in the VBA you will be confused. You will have to come back on these forms and see that what name actually, you know, you have given. So better we should give a good name, and then you don't really have to think even, you know, twice that which control actually I'm talking about. So if I'm writing something, I want to write a program on this control which is text box password, then I can simply write there, you know, me.txt password. I'll come to that. Let's first have a look on this. So this is how the table looks like, and obviously these buttons are not going to work. I can enter something here, username and the password. I can click on the submit, and this is how your login page is going to be created. Okay, so what is the next thing we want to do? Now the next thing we want to do is if you're able to click on this submit, you know, then obviously you would like to do something, isn't it? You would like to have the access to the other forms, let's say. So in the meantime, this is the form 1, so I'm just going to close this form, and let's say we're going to name this as login form. Okay, that is the first thing I want to do. So this form gets open and somebody is going to click on this, and then he can go ahead and, you know, access all the other forms, right? So maybe then we can do one thing. First of all, let's go ahead and let's go to the design view of this, and let us see that how we're going to create that. So I'm going to click on this submit, and you just come to this event option, and in the event option just click on this button and go to the code builder. Just click on that. It will take you to the CMD submit button, because we have renamed it as a CMD submit button, right? Otherwise by default, you know, you would see there command 1, command 2, command 3. So we have named it as CMD submit, and that is why you are able to see this name, right? I'll just tell you again, this is where we have created this name, CMD submit button. If you change this name, then automatically the name would change here. Okay, so now what is the first thing we want to do? So we want to create two variables quickly. I'm going to create here a variable called dim my user name as, let's just keep it variant. You can create the string as well, because you know this is also always going to be a string, and then dim my password. I just write it pwd, okay, as string. Okay, now password can be a string, it can be anything, right? But in our table, let's just remove this dim. In our table it is text actually. If you click here, you will see that all are aligned to the left side, and you know, whenever you write something in the form of text, they always align to the left side. I hope you know that, right? Whether it is Excel or whether it is your Access. So if I go in the design view, you see that it is actually data type is text. So that is why I can manage it with the string. So I'm just keeping this as a string. Now what is the next thing we want to do? Now we want to store these values. Okay, so my username going to be equals to me dot, me refers to this form which you have created, this login form, right? This form underscore login form, me dot. Now what was the text name? If you remember, txt. Now this is going to help you a lot, right? This is what I was talking about. Now you know that on which control you're going to work, right? By default they have the name called textbox1, textbox2. So just imagine if you would have got here textbox1, textbox2, it would be so difficult for us to remember that textbox1 refers to what, you know. Then again you would have to go back to your login page, this design view, and you would have to click on that particular item, and then you go to the property sheet, you know, and once you click on the property sheet, then you see that what was the name of that form. So it's textbox1. All right, so that means this refers to username. So that is why you make your life, you know, simple, make it easy. So don't just go by the default naming conventions of the VBA, right? Just use your own naming convention. It is going to help you in recalling the things. So now I know that this is the username, so I'm going to write here txt username dot value. So we will have the value in this variable. Similarly, my password dot this variable, I'm going to use it my text password dot value. Okay, so once we have created that, now what is the next thing we want to do? Now you see, whatever the name you have entered in this variable, the username and the password, if both are exactly, if they are found in this table, then that means you are good to go. And if they are not found, either of them or both of them, you know, then that means there is something wrong. So in Excel, if you know Excel, guys, then you know that there is a VLOOKUP option. You can simply look up the things, right? So in the VBA, Access VBA also, though we don't have a VLOOKUP, but we have a Dlookup. Dlookup function also works in the same way, and which is what we are going to use, right? So I declare the variable here dim result as, let's say, I'm going to declare it as a string. Result is my own variable. You can create whatever you want. Now you are going to write here application dot Dlookup. Okay, the formula comes, and look at this now. What is the, so Dlookup has 3 parameters. So I'm really going to spend a lot of time on this Dlookup because you should understand it, what it is, because the base of this form is actually going to be the Dlookup. If you know the Dlookup, you can do it very easily. Now, as I said, that this is just like a VLOOKUP function. So what means that we are going to provide a value which it has to find in the table called this, and where exactly we will provide the field header as well. Now in our table we have the 2 headers. You may have 5 headers, 6 headers. Really, I mean, it's not really the concern. It's not really so important. What important is, look at the first expression, the first parameter. It says expression as string. Now in this case, we want to write that which field we are actually targeting in the table, in the login detail table, right? Because whatever user has entered, you would like to find that value in this table. That's the first thing. For example, let's take the example of the username. So if the username is, let's say, user has entered ABC, then where you are going to find it out, right? In the text box, you entered ABC and you press the submit button, and the submit button, this macro is going to run, and then my username will have that ABC value from this text username dot value, right? Then that ABC, where you need to find it out, that's the important thing. So you need to find it out in this login detail, which is a table name, and in this login detail, where exactly, under which header. So obviously if the username is entered, then we would like to find this under the field called user underscore name. So here guys, you write always that field name, right? That field name where you want to find the value. So we want to find the username, so I will write here user underscore name. But you can't just simply write this like this, user underscore name. You can't write the field name like this. There is a rule for this. You have to put it within the close brackets, square brackets. So you'll write it like this, square brackets. This is the same key which you use, you know, for the curly brackets. When you press shift and use this key, then you would get the curly brackets. If you don't use the shift key, you will get the square brackets. And yes, you have to always write it within the quotes. So basically what we have done on the first parameter, we have identified that which field is on, you know, which field is that in the table where we actually want to find out the value. So that's the username, which is in the table called the login details. So the domain as string means that the table name you want to write it down. So what is my table name? You know, the table name is login details. Put it within the quotes. That's very much mandatory for you. Okay. So here use square brackets and then put it within the quotes, and here you will have to write it within the quotes only. You don't require the square brackets. The next and the last parameter is the criteria. Now you said that, all right, so go to the login detail and then, you know, keep a watch on this header, which is called the username. But then what you want to find, that is what, you know, this criteria is all about. So under the username, what you want to find? I want to find this my username, this variable which I have created. You can create any variable, A, B, C, I, T, whatever you want to write it down, right? So now there is a way of writing it. So what you will do, you will set up the criteria. So you will say that the username, which is this, it has to be equals to this variable. So this is how we are going to write username. Put the square brackets again. You have to put the square brackets again. Okay, and equals to what? Equals to this variable, right? So this is basically your criteria. So username underscore name is your basically the field, and my username is what you are going to enter in the text box. Now there is a way of writing it. Now because this is a variable, you can't simply just write it like this and close the bracket. You will get the error, right? So my username, you have to write it in this way. First of all, you just write this quote and write this quotes, just, you know, close this and then join this with the AND operator like this. And in the variable, because it is a variable, we will have to write this single quote. So you're going to write like this: double quote, single quote, double quote, and join it. I hope you understand the AND. This is basically to join it, and then AND again. So you're going to write it this single quote. So basically your variable is going to be prefixed and suffixed with these single quotes, and that is what we are exactly doing. Now this entire line, if you are seeing this line, this is all, you know, this line is going to be considered as a string, because here we don't need anything. Here we are not using any variable, right? It is simple. It is your basically the header of the table called login details. So we are saying that, now look at this function, Dlookup username login details, where username is going to be equals to this variable, whatever the value you will have. Okay, so here I have just created the field name. So in other words, you can write here Dlookup. Let me just explain you. So here you will write the field name, and you will write the field name like this, square brackets. Then you go to the next parameter. Here you write the table name, which is going to be, you know, again going to be written within the quotes, and then here you write the criteria. Now criteria can be anything. This is how the Dlookup basically works. Now criteria can be anything. For example, you can say that the password equals to this value, username equals to this value, first name equals to this value, last name equals to this value, whatever, right? But just remember, the field name has to be within the closed brackets, square brackets. Okay, and this is very much required because you're using a variable. If you're not going to write this, if you're simply going to write the statement without these, you know, the quotes, like suppose you write like this. Now let us execute this line. If I'm going to write like this, suppose I put it everything in the quotes. Now what happens when you're going to run this command? Let's just click on this break code, and let me come here. So I'm going to enter Ajay and 123. So just click on the view, and so here I enter my username, and here I'm going to enter the 123, which is my password, 123, and I click on the submit, and there we go. Now the moment you're going to run, you see that my Ajay variable has my text value which I have entered in the username. My password is 123, which is again coming from this txt password.value, which is my user form control. And when you're going to run this, this will give you the error. The expression you entered as a query produce this error, my username. So basically what you are doing, you're saying that username has to be equals to my username. This is not a variable, right? If I put the watch on this, this will not be going to accept it, right? So what I need to do is I need to basically write this separately. So I close my statement here, double quote, and then I join it with this variable. And before I, when I'm going to join it, I just need to provide the single quotes here. This is how you write. This is the way we define the variables here in the criteria. Simple. Okay. So let me just create the space, and this has to be single quotes, I beg your pardon, and I think we are done. Let's have a look. Let me run that. All right, so it ran and look at the value now. It says Ajay. That means the Ajay is there. Obviously you were trying to find it out and it got it, right? Now if I show you again, let's say let's enter another username. So I'm going to enter the username called let's say AJK, which is not there in my database, you know that, right? So if I click on yes, then look at this. The moment I'm going to run this invalid use of null. So what it says now it actually says that the value basically you're trying to retrieve, it's not there. Okay, so if you have a look on this, this says that this is space, because here you got it AJK and AJK is not available, right? So now what we can do is we can, for the time being, I just remove this dim and I keep it as variant. Okay, let me just rerun the program again. There we go. Let me press enter, submit. Look at this now. Look at the value. It says null, right? Now why we were getting the error, I know you must be wondering that, you know, why the program was giving us the error when we created here, you know, the result as string. So I wanted to tell you, actually, see, string works only when you have some value coming out, which is of course a username, right? But what if the username is not there? Then this result is going to give you the null, and null cannot be a part of this data type, string. So in that case, you just keep it variant. I hope you understand the variant data type. And if you don't, if you have any doubts, then you can go ahead and watch my, you know, the video on the how to crack the VBA interviews. There I have talked about this, the data types, that what does actually this mean when you use a variant. So variant means actually it can absorb any data type. You are leaving everything on the VBA. You are not specifying it is going to be string, it is going to be integer, it is going to be double. No, because you're not sure, you know, it can be anything. So variant actually is going to accept your this null value also, which string will not, because string is not actually used for the null values, right? So the point is, if you have the null value coming, that means that there is something wrong. It is not going to match up. So in that case, what we will do, so I'm also going to create one more Dlookup, which is for the password, because we also need to, you know, find out the same result for the password also. So both things should match. So I'm going to write here result. Let me just give it a name called result2, and let's just declare here result2 as well as variant. Okay, so in this case, now what we want to do, have a look on this. So we are going to find it out now, because, you know, the user is going to enter the password in this the login form here, the password, right? So this password, what we actually going to enter, this would come here in this variable, right? So this variable, obviously, where we exactly going to find this in the login details, obviously you would like to find it in this header, not in this header, right? And that is why in the beginning I focused on this, the first parameter. This is called the field name. So in this case, your field name would change to password, because here we are going to enter the password. Here we are going to look up the password which you're going to enter here. Okay, so now what happens, obviously the table will remain as it is. Now this line you can leave it as it is also. It is not going to create any problem. I'll tell you the reason, because if you look at this line, this means that go in the password header under the table called login detail and look out for the, you know, the record where username is equals to Ajay. Let's say if somebody has entered the Ajay in the username, right? So automatically it is going to capture this 123 if it is going to find this username. If it is not going to find the username, it will give you the error, right? Or you can also do one thing, you can simply change this username to password, this password, that, you know, the password is equals to my pwd. You can do that as well. It's all up to you. So you can create this line in this way as well. For example, let me just copy this. Let me explain it to you. Ultimately, the query would remain same. So here I'm going to say that the password, which is my field header, one of my field header of the login details table. So I'm saying that password is equals to what you have entered here, my pwd. So this line, if you read it, what does that mean? This simply means that, suppose if I've entered the password 123, then this means that please go in the login details table under the field called password and look out for the password which is equals to 123. So again, whether you go by this, by the name of Ajay, you find out the record that what is the password for Ajay, or simply you go ahead and you find out that whether this 123 exists under the 123 this password header. It's one and the same thing. Ultimately, if we don't get the null value, then that means the password is there, right? So whichever line you want to execute, you can execute that. So let me just comment this out, and now let us run this. So I'm going to back on my this login form. So I have here Ajay K and 123, and you know that Ajay K is not available. So let's just click on the form view. So let me just click here, submit, and let's see if we get the value or not. There we go. So now look at this result. It says null. Obviously it is going to give you the null because my username is Ajay K, and you know that it's not available in our table, and my password is 123, which is available in our table. So if I execute this line, I should get a value which is 123. So that means password is accepted, but the username is not accepted. But the point is, to create a login form, to make this successful login, you basically need both the items to be true. If both are null, then no way, we are not going to allow. And if any of them is also blank, is coming null, then again you would not like to go ahead, you would not like to give the permission. So here we're going to write the if condition. So I'm going to say that is null. So what is the first my variable? Result. So I'm saying that if this is equals to true, which means that the result variable is null, or the another variable which is result2, any of them is going to be null, then what we would like to do, we would like to say that message box login, or you can say that credentials are not valid. Okay, please check your username or password, and if it is the case, and yes, one thing more we want to do, in that case you can also just exit from the database. So we can write here, let me show you how we're going to close that. So we can write here do cmd close database, close it, just simply let's use this close. Okay, and if we have them, I mean if they are not null, then what we want to do, then obviously we would like to display a message called message box login successful. So this is the first thing we want to do. Okay, so now let me save this, and end if, don't forget to write the end if, because with every if you have your end if. Now let's go ahead and let's create the form. So I'm going to click on the form again, form view, just close this. Okay, that's my Ajay K and 123, again I'm using it, submit. There we go. You know that what would be the answer. So now you look at this, it's null and it has some value. So we are saying that both are supposed to be, if both any of them is going to be null, in this case the result is this value, this variable is null. So definitely what will happen, it will go in the true parameter, because we are using the or means either this is going to be null or this is going to be null, or both of them are null. Then you just go here, message box credentials not valid, please check your username, and there we go. Do you want to save the changes to the form login form? So let's say I'm going to say it yes. Okay, and enter, and there we go. So you see that the form is totally closed here. Okay, so one more thing we can do here, in the close I can say that here this object name and everything, we'll just write here that we should have not don't get the prompt. Basically it is going to save everything, save yes. So just write it like this, right? So we don't need anything. For example, if you look at this, there are some other parameters that what exactly you want to close. So you have object names, you can write the object name as well, but by default, I mean, it's going to work on the login form, so we don't require anything. So just press 2 commas and then say that it is always going to save. So we shouldn't be able to see that prompt coming out, right? So if I now click on this again, let's have a look on this table. Let me close everything, save it, and there we go. Now I'm going to write here ABC, and the password is this, which is invalid. So let's just click on the submit and let's just run this. There we go. Now credentials not valid, please check your username and password. There we go. And look at this. Now it has closed the form and it did not ask you for any prompt. This is what exactly we wanted to do, right? Because initially when you saw, if you rewind the video, you would see that it asked us for the prompt that you want to save the changes and all that, right? Now one more thing we can do, instead of closing the form, you can also basically go ahead and close this database. So how you can do that? We can write here do cmd close the database. Let's have a look on this, and I'm going to save this, put the comments here, and now let us just go ahead and run this. I'm going to remove the breakcode so that we should run it. Close the form, and let's double click on it, and there we go. So I'm just going to write anything and submit it. Credentials not valid, I know that. Press OK and let's see. All right, so there we go. That you see that it is actually absolutely closed. The database is closed, right? So now you will have to log in back. You will have to just open that database again. So it's all up to you. I'm trying to give you all the options basically, right? And so let's go back to the Visual Basic, Alt F11, and there we go. And so one more thing we can do, if we have, let me just yeah, you can also use this application quit. I think this is going to quit. Let me comment everything out, and now let's run this. You would see the difference why I'm using that. First of all, let's just run this. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna write here AGD anything, just submit it, and invalid use of null. All right, so you can't basically keep the password null, so my mistake, so just end it. And let's put the password here. Let's say this one. There we go. Credentials not valid, please check your username and password. Press OK, and there we go, guys. Now do you see that do cmd.close actually closed the access, but your basically the layout of the Excel was there, right? You were not able to completely exit from it, but this time the application totally quit and you don't see even the blank access. So any option you want to use, I prefer you should use either the first one or the third one, and don't use the second one, because that keeps the user on the access platform. This one I'm talking about. Either you come out of the form, that's fine, or you use the application.quit, but don't use this option, I would say. Okay. All right, so now what is the next thing we want to do? Now obviously if you are able to successfully the login, then what would you like to do? That is again the next task. So obviously when the login happens, then you would like to capture another form. Now that depends on what forms you have created. For example, I have created, let us quickly create here a form. Let's say this is the form, and or maybe we can do one thing. Why don't we go ahead and create the form of this? Just select this table and go to the create, and this time I'm just going to create the form on this table. Now you see that we have a table converted into the form, right? So let me just save this table, and the table name is let's say I'm going to name this F, login details F. Just save this table, right? So this is what exactly, now we have two tables. So you can have multiple tables. That's I'm not sure now what my subscriber wanted, but I'm just telling you, obviously if you are giving the access to the login, then you would like to go ahead and do something, right? You would like to give some access to the next login forms. So let's say I want to say that, so if the message happens, if this is going to be successful, then the next form should come there, which is going to be the login details form. So in that case, what you will do, you will write here do cmd.open form, and then here in the form you're going to write the form name. So I'm going to write here the login details F, that's my form name, and then put the comma, and then choose the next parameter. You want to open it in the normal view, preview, layout, design view, whatever you want to do, right? So I'll just keep it on the normal view, right? Or maybe you can just remove that. Would you like to create any filters? So we don't need anything, right? We are not going to do any sort of that stuff. So that's the only thing I'm going to do here now. There we go. Message box, and now let us run this and let's have a look on this, right? Okay, so I'm going to enter here, let's say Alan with 454, and let's see it is going to accept that or not. So there we go, form view, Alan, and 454. Okay, submit. Login successful, right? So login is successful, then just click OK, and there we go. You see that the login detail form is automatically going to be populated. If I'm not going to put any, let's say I'm going to put something like this and I submit it, you see what will happen. Credentials not valid, and there we go. The Access database is going to exit. You will not have a chance to watch the forms, right? Okay, now the next thing which is very important, because we still you might be asking me that what is the use of this login form, because right now I can access to any form. I can click on the database, I can click on this form, I can click on this form, right? So what is the purpose of verifying these user form credentials? So that is the last part of this video. Now what we wanted by default, user should always be able to see this form and nothing else, right? So in that case, what you want to do, because if you're going to show the database like this, then he can access to any form. Then what is the use of verifying the details, isn't it? Right? So what we are actually going to do is we are going to use the login form in the background of this table. Okay, so I go to the file, you go to the options, and in the options, let's have a look on that option in the current database. Let me find it out. Display form. All right, so in the display form, you're going to display which form? So I'm going to display this login form. If you're working on 2000, then this looks like the same, and I think in 2007 also this is the same option in the current database. Now this is what we want to do. Now just press OK. Okay, you must close and reopen the current database for the specified options to take effect. So we are going to simply just close this and reopen it. Now there we go. Now I'm going to open this Access database. Let's have a look. All right, so by default the form got opened, right? But again, I have one problem. I can still, can access these all details, right? So now what is the next part we want to do? By default the form is getting open, but basically it's not getting open in the full view like this, in this way. We should have got it open in this way. So what we can do in this case is, let me click here. This is your navigation pane. Basically just go in the file option, and in the current database we have an option here called these navigation panes. You just need to scroll it down and find it out. Where is it? So there we go, display navigation pane. So I'm just simply going to uncheck this. Okay, and what else we have? Do we have anything else? I don't think so. So just press OK. Again, you must close and reopen the current database. So I'm just going to close it, and there we go. Now let's just reopen it again and let's have a look on this page. There we go, guys, right? So in this way, now the form is opened and you don't have any access to the navigation pane. Even if you click here, you will not be able to see that, right? So if I write here Ajay, and let's say the password was 123, I hope I remember the password. So just click on the submit, and there we go, login successful. All right, and there we go. Now you can have access to these login forms. So this is just an example. I mean, obviously in the practical situation, you may like to create a very dynamic, the other forms. Maybe you can create a login page where you have all the hyperlinks created, where you click on this form, then it would, it would take you to the next form. If you click on the second hyperlink, then it would take you to the different form, and then from there to come back to this page, you can create the back button. So anyways, I will create that video on very soon, but I don't want to mix up the things now. So this is how your login page is created. That's the first thing. Now if I enter something here, look at this, submit. Credentials not valid, please check your username and password, and there we go. Perfect, great. Now the important part, I still have one problem here. Not a problem, but a question should come in your mind. I'm not sure if it is coming. If it is coming, then you are genius. If it is not, then I would say that you still need a little more practice on the access, on your thought process. Because you see, the moment I close this, I open this, let's say. Now I don't have the access to the table, but as an admin, I should have the access, isn't it? So if I want the access, if I want to go to the different options, I want to, let's say, add one more login ID, then what is the way around? So we want that whenever this access actually should open, this login page should not come, and I should get back to my original, the access page where I can have the navigations and I can have the forms, tables, everything. I mean, navigation pane should be visible. So what is the way? Now I'm going to tell you the tip. If you have come across the access tables which you open, and by default they run the macros. The moment you open the access database, there are the macros, self-triggered macros, which always run, and they don't give you the chance even to look at the database. Then in order to open such kind of a databases, what you need to do is you just select the database and press shift key. Keep your this shift key pressed, don't release it, and then double click here. My shift key is still pressed, and look at this now. It is not going to work the way it was. Now you will not have basically the form which is going to be opened in this way. Okay, so shift, if you double click on the access, if you press enter, the settings which you have made, or maybe if you are running any macro on the access which has a program made that whenever the access is going to open, by default that those macros should run, and you're not able to access it, then this is a tip for you. You need to press the shift and you need to double click on that, and this time the page would open and you can access whatever you want to access in this way. If user is actually very smart, then he can still go to the files and the options, and he can check all the options, like whatever you have done. For example, I can click on the file option, and then I can go to this current database, and maybe I can display it. The moment I click check mark on this and maybe display form, I can make it also none. So everything whatever you have done, it is going to be destroyed, it is going to be removed. So if I click on the, let's say, OK, then you must close and reopen. So the next time I'm going to close this database and I'm going to open it again, you would see that I will be having the access to the navigation pane. So this is not something we want to do, right? So now I'm going to tell you that how to basically lock this file navigation pane as well. So basically we are going to totally out and out going to lock this the navigation pane, right? So that he cannot even use Alt F the shortcut key, and he can't use this file option tab, right? So for that, what we need to do is because we want to make it 100% proof, right? Now please remember that anyone can actually if you're using basically any kind of a database in the MS Access, you put the password and some sort of that stuff. For example, in the VBA, if you want to put the password, anyone can go to the Alt F11 and can have a look on your code, and that we also have a way to basically put your VBA module under the protection. We can actually put that, we can give that the protection there, but if from the internet, I mean, there are a lot of utilities, there are a lot of basically the tools which can break the code. So it's not really 100% safe. You can't really believe that if somebody wants to look at your VBA code, then they can't break the password, and that is quite breakable. Anyone can do that, right? So they are not really so safe, but I think as long as you are using this in your office environment, definitely I think nobody really likes to do that, because your purpose is not to to put the password, because the data is actually very much secure, right? And you have a doubt of data leakages. But basically this is more of a designing perspective, that anyone who is not a part of your team member, they can't access it, that's it, right? Otherwise you have the another things like SQL Server, and these are very good databases. Are basically you can store as much of the data there. Like Access, we have a limit in the Access database, it can store only up to 2 GB, right? So people if they have the more data, if they want more security on their databases, then definitely they switch over to the the bigger application, which is the SQL Server. So just wanted to actually put this thing also in your knowledge. So now so what is the next thing we want to do? So guys, there is a very good one single line command which we want to do. So whenever this login form gets loaded, so go to its basically the design view, this login form. You know that by default this is always going to be open, because we have fixed this in the file options. So whenever user is going to click on the database, he's going to see this database, the form, by default. So the moment this form gets uploaded, go to the property sheet and select the form here. This is my form, and on the load event, whenever this form is going to load, what we are going to do, we are going to run the procedure, event procedure. Just click on this, and there we go. So here on the form load, I am going to write one line, which is to disable the ribbon so that user can't access this file and can go to the file option and can see your settings. So what we are going to do is we are going to write here do cmd and then dot, and then you have a command called let me just walk through all the options. I am just not able to remember it. So lock navigation is also something which you can do, right? So we can lock the navigation as well, but I think that we have already done because we went to the file and option. So this option is also good. You can lock it from the VBA code as well instead of going to the file option. And so we have here add menu, filter, copy object. We have a lot of methods. Navigate to open, module, query, report, table, open view, output, refresh, requery. Okay, yeah, show toolbar. All right, there we go, show toolbar, right? So show toolbar, and the toolbar name is ribbon. So just write it ribbon, and then what you want to do, so you want to basically don't want to show it, so just keep it no. Okay, now let us see what will happen. Now remember, whenever this form which we have created, the login form, is going to be loaded back on your access, then you would have this, the code automatically it is going to run, right? And why this form is going to upload, as we know that we have already set up the things in the file option, that whenever this the database gets opened, we are actually displaying the form called the login form. And I don't want to display the navigation pane, so just I again uncheck it, and now let's just save this everything. Let's just close this. So there we go. Now let's just open this, and now let us have a look. All right, there we go. Now you can see that you can't see actually the ribbon, it's locked, right? So nobody is now able to use any option here. I can't even click on the navigation. Okay, so I have just this form, and if I try to press Alt F-T, which is the shortcut key to go to the file option, let me press it. I can't do that, guys, right? So I'm going to press Ajay 1 2 3, and there we go. Click on the submit, and the login successful, and the page, it's coming, right? So if I just close this and I press something else, let's say this, submit, and current details not valid. All right, just close, and you'll see that the access is going to close. So in this way you can actually prepare this form. So if I don't want to get this the macro to run, that is going to lock everything, navigation and all the things, so what you can do is you can simply press shift key and press enter, and there we go. Now you have everything in place. So that is what actually I'm trying to tell you, that if you want to really keep your data 100% secure, you have a chances that your data can be misused or any sort of that stuff, then Access is not a good tool for that. Neither Excel is a good tool for that. Then you should switch over to the SQL Server, right? But in the Access, what the kind of the login form we can create this kind of a login form. So what we did, first of all, we created a login form. This form, we went to the create, and we set the form design, and this is the form which we have created. We entered 2 text boxes and 1 command button, right? And then user is going to enter the username and the password. We are going to store them in the variables, and in those variables we are applying the Dlookup. If the username and the password are matching, if they are available in this table, then we are saying that all right, login successful, and then we are getting the form open, which is this form. So here you can do whatever you want to do right after the successful login. And if it is not the successful login, then we are simply saying that just close this database, giving the prompted message invalid, right? Now because we wanted that whenever this form gets opened, whenever this access gets opened, then we should always by default see this form, and this navigation should also not be user can't access it. So to do that, we went to the file option, and there we use the 2 options. One is to display the form, which form you want to display. We selected the form name, and then in the navigation just scroll it down in the file option, and we uncheck that display option, right? And the important thing which we did is that whenever this form is going to load, so we just written there one-liner, which is if I go to the Alt F11, there we go. So here you can actually see that this is the line which we have created. Okay, so if you want to get the ribbon back, maybe let's say if you want to get the ribbon back whenever the successful login happens, right? So you can write here that if the successful login happens, then let's just make it yes. Okay, in this way. And by the way, you can also create the code, you can protect the code also, the VBA code. Just go to the tools and the options, and in the options go to this option called no, I think that's not the option, I beg your pardon. It's actually on the digital signatures database one property. Yeah, there we go. So here you can in the protection you can write a lock project for viewing and give the password. So I'm gonna give the password as, let's say, Ajay and AJY, and that's it. I press OK, I close everything, and I close this as well. Let me just close this, and now let's just open this. Okay, there we go. So you have this everything details here, and now if I'm going to press Alt F11, you see that I'm on the VBA window, but it's going to ask me for the password. This password is breakable. If somebody wants to, you know, break it, they can break it, to be very honest, right? So they are not 100% proof, but again, you can give these passwords. You can make it quite secure, because in office premises, generally the people they don't really like to, you know, go into this much of details that they would like to break the password. The password you're going to create here for your own use, so that nobody can actually you know, change it, or nobody can edit it unintentionally. Okay, so just cancel it. This is how you have done. Now you have secured everything. And now if I, let's say, create Ajay and I write here 1 2 3, let me just click on the button submit, and login successful. All right, now you can see here that my ribbon is also back. Not only the form got opened, but I can also now go to this ribbon option, right? Because of this option which we have written in the database. So let me just type in my password Ajay, and let me show you back what we have done. So whenever this login is going to happen, this line is going to be executed. So for people who are authenticated, you know, we would like to give them all the things back, right? So this is all we have done, and you can see this is a very small code basically, right? So pause the video and you can have a look on that. And in case if I have left something, do let me know about it, and I'll, you know, definitely get back to you. So this is the end of the video 202, guys. I hope you really thoroughly enjoyed this, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll come back with some another exciting stuff. Thank you so much. Bye bye.